He used to wait. Wait for a break. Wait for someone to notice his talent. Wait for a call, a message, a miracle. But days turned into weeks. Weeks into years. And nothing came. Because here's the brutal truth. No one is coming. Ethan Cole had been promising since high school. He had the grades, the charm, the dreams. Teachers said he'd change the world. Friends said he'd be the one who made it out. But years later, Ethan was still stuck in the same cycle dead-end job. Empty promises, dreams collecting dust in the corner of his mind. He told himself he was just waiting for the right time. Waiting for money, waiting for luck, waiting for someone to pull him out. But deep down, he knew the truth. He wasn't waiting for the right time. He was waiting for a savior. And that savior wasn't coming. The moment hit one freezing night in January. Ethan sat alone in his beat-up car, engine stuttering, parked outside the apartment he could barely afford. Rain hammered the windshield. His phone buzzed with another rejection email. "We've decided to move forward with another candidate." He dropped the phone on the passenger seat and laughed bitterly. Not because it was funny, but because it was all too familiar. Failure had become routine. He sat there for hours, headlights dimming, staring at the reflection of his tired face in the glass. And it hit him with the force of a freight train. No one is coming. Not the perfect job, not the perfect partner, not the miracle investor. No one was going to knock on his door and hand him the life he wanted. If he wanted change, he'd have to create it. That night, Ethan walked into his apartment with something he hadn't felt in years. Not hope, not excitement, resolve. He pulled out an old notebook, tossed on the dusty desk, and scribbled one sentence across the page in capital letters: "Motivate yourself." The next morning, his alarm went off at 5 a.m. His body screamed, "Stay in bed." His mind whispered, "You can start tomorrow." But he remembered the notebook, remembered the rain on the windshield, remembered the truth. No one was coming. So he got up. He started small, push-ups on the cold floor, jogging around the block before sunrise, reading 10 pages instead of scrolling for hours. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't impressive, but it was his. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he was waiting. He felt like he was moving. The excuses came every day. "You're too tired. You've tried before and failed. This won't matter anyway." But every time, Ethan reminded himself, excuses don't build futures. Excuses don't save you. And no one else was going to fight for him. So he fought for himself. One morning, jogging through icy streets, lungs burning, legs heavy, Ethan whispered under his breath, "On my own rescue." The words felt strange at first, but the more he repeated them, the more they felt like armor. Because he finally understood, no one was coming. But no one needed to. The hardest part wasn't starting. It was continuing. Because the first few days felt exciting, new, different, full of energy. But excitement fades, and that's when discipline has to take over. By week 2, Ethan's body ached. His arms throbbed from push-ups. His legs burned from running. His eyes stung from waking before sunrise. The old voice returned, louder now. "You've done enough. Take a day off. What's the point?" But every time he felt the pull of comfort, he remembered the car, the rain, the reflection of his broken self staring back at him. And he whispered the words he had written in his notebook: "Motivate yourself." He built a routine like steel bars. Wake up at 5 a.m., run 2 miles strength training in the living room. Cold shower. Read. Work his shift. Come home and study business, marketing, and coding until midnight. Sleep. Repeat. Every day, no negotiations. No exceptions. It wasn't pretty. He missed parties, ignored texts, skipped nights out with friends. They called him obsessed. They called him boring. He didn't care, because they weren't coming to save him either. Slowly, his body began to change. The man in the mirror no longer looked defeated. His shoulders were broader, his face leaner, his eyes sharper. But the biggest change wasn't physical. It was mental. For the first time in years, he trusted himself. Because every day he made a promise to himself and kept it. By month 2, he had filled half a notebook with progress logs. Not just workouts or runs, but lessons. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the fire. No one will clap for you at the beginning. Clap for yourself. Comfort is the slowest poison. Every page became a reminder of who he was becoming. The world around him began to shift. Coworkers asked why he looked different. Neighbors saw him running in the dark and nodded with respect. Even strangers online noticed when he quietly posted his first progress photo with the caption, "Day 60. No one's coming. So I showed up for myself." Hundreds of comments flooded in. "Needed this. Bro, this hit hard. Keep going." Ethan didn't post for them, but for the first time, he realized his self-motivation could light fires in others. Still, the fight never got easier. Every morning, his alarm felt heavier. Every night, his eyes begged for sleep. But he stopped asking, "Do I feel like it?" He started asking, "Did I promise myself this?" And if the answer was yes, he did it, no matter how he felt. One freezing morning, snow crunching under his shoes, breath like smoke in the air, Ethan whispered into the empty street, "I don't wait anymore. I work." And that became his new mantra. By the end of month 3, the results were undeniable. He was fitter, smarter, sharper, but most of all, he was free. Because he no longer depended on someone else to give him permission. He no longer waited for a savior. He had become his own. At first, no one noticed. That was the hardest part. He was changing, growing, grinding every day, but to the world, he was still the same guy they remembered. The one who failed, the one who quit, the one who always talked but never delivered. And that invisibility tested him more than the workouts ever did. But Ethan didn't quit, because he had learned the most important lesson. You don't do it for applause. You do it because no one else will do it for you. By month 4, the changes were impossible to ignore. His coworkers noticed first. They whispered in the break room, glancing at him with quiet surprise. The man who once slouched into work, tired and half asleep, now walked in sharp, awake, eyes burning with focus. He didn't drag through the day anymore. He dominated it. And when someone finally asked, "What's gotten into you?" he just smiled and said, "I stopped waiting." His body was a reflection of his new mind. The fat melted. Muscle carved itself across his shoulders and arms. His posture straightened. His jawline sharpened. But it wasn't vanity that drove him. It was the proof in the mirror every morning that discipline works. That self-motivation builds what excuses destroy. The bigger shift came outside of the gym. Ethan started applying the same discipline to his dreams. He had always talked about starting a side business, a design and marketing service for small local shops. But talk never built anything. So he built. He created sample projects late at night. He studied client psychology on weekends. He reached out to strangers online, offering free mock-ups just to practice. The old Ethan would have waited for someone to give him an opportunity. The new Ethan created his own. Within weeks, one free mock-up turned into a paying client. Then another. Then another. Soon, his side hustle was making almost as much as his dead-end job. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt since he was a kid: momentum. But the world still doubted him. Friends said, "Don't get your hopes up." Family warned, "Be realistic." Old classmates rolled their eyes. They still saw him as the guy who failed before. But that didn't matter anymore. Because he wasn't doing it for them. He wasn't doing it for validation. He was doing it because he finally understood that waiting was death, and working was life. By month 5, Ethan's days looked nothing like before. He woke at 5 a.m., ran in the dark, trained his body until it burned, went to work sharper than anyone else in the room, came home, worked with clients, learned new skills, built his dream piece by piece. It was lonely. It was exhausting. It was relentless. But it was his. And slowly, the world began to take notice. One night, scrolling through his small social media account, Ethan posted a simple update: 150 days. No one saved me. I saved myself. The photo showed him standing, shirt drenched in sweat, eyes fierce, body transformed. It wasn't polished. It wasn't fake. It was raw, and people felt it. The post blew up. Hundreds of strangers commented. Thousands shared it. "I needed this today." Respect, bro. Proof that excuses don't get you anywhere. Ethan didn't reply to most of them, because he knew what none of them understood. It wasn't the photo that mattered. It was the 150 days before it. The mornings no one saw. The nights no one clapped for. The discipline no one applauded. That was the real story. But the attention gave him something he hadn't expected, a voice. For the first time, people were listening, not to his excuses, not to his failures, but to his truth. And he realized, if his story could wake even one person up from the lie of waiting, it was worth telling. That night, sitting at his desk, Ethan whispered to himself, "I used to wait for someone to motivate me. Now I've become the one who motivates others." Momentum is powerful, but it's also fragile. And Ethan was about to learn that discipline isn't built for the easy days. It's built for the storms. By month 6, his life was unrecognizable. He was stronger, sharper, more focused than ever before. His side business was growing steadily, attracting clients from across the state. His transformation story online had gained him a small following of people who messaged daily, "You inspire me." How do you stay so consistent? But success brings pressure, and pressure exposes cracks. The first crack was exhaustion. Ethan was juggling too much: 5 a.m. runs, gym sessions, his full-time job, client projects, late nights building his platform. Sleep became rare. Meals became rushed. His body ached in ways he had never felt before. One night, after a 16-hour grind, he collapsed onto the couch and whispered to himself, "I can't keep this up." The old excuses rushed back, eager to reclaim him. "You've done enough. Take a break, just this once. You're burning out." And for the first time in months, he believed them. He skipped a morning run, then a workout, then a night of work. And before he realized it, 3 days had passed with no progress. The shame hit hard. He stared at the mirror, watching the fire in his eyes dim. It felt too familiar, too much like the old Ethan, and it terrified him. That Sunday night, he sat at his desk, head in his hands, surrounded by clutter. His notebook, the same one where he had written "Motivate yourself," sat closed, buried under papers. For the first time since his transformation began, he thought about quitting. Maybe his family was right. Maybe his friends were right. Maybe he had already pushed as far as he could. He felt that old weight of helplessness settle on his shoulders again. But then, his phone buzzed. A message from a stranger. "I saw your post last month. I started running because of you. I've lost 20 pounds. I don't know you, but thank you for saving my life." Ethan froze. His throat tightened. He read it again and again. He hadn't set out to save anyone, but somehow, by saving himself, he had lit a fire in someone else. And in that moment, he realized he couldn't quit. Not for himself, not for the people watching, not for the ones who needed proof that self-motivation works. So he picked up the notebook, dusted it off, opened to a fresh page, and wrote in bold letters, "Falling is not failure. Staying down is." The next morning, his alarm screamed at 5 a.m. And this time, so did he. He roared out of bed, laced his shoes, and pounded the pavement harder than ever. Every step was a declaration. "I'm still here." He rebuilt his routine with even sharper precision. But this time, he added something new: rest. Not laziness, not excuses, real recovery. Because discipline wasn't about breaking himself. It was about building something unbreakable. The setbacks didn't stop. Clients dropped unexpectedly. Projects failed. His savings bled. But Ethan no longer looked for rescue. When things broke, he fixed them. When people left, he moved forward. When life hit him, he hit back harder. Because he finally understood, motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you going. Self-motivation makes you unstoppable. By month 7, Ethan wasn't just surviving storms. He was thriving in them. And every time he pushed through, every time he silenced the old excuses, every time he showed up when quitting was easier, he proved to himself that he no longer needed saving. He was his own savior now. The breakthrough didn't come with fireworks. It came with consistency. Day after day, week after week, month after month, Ethan stopped chasing the moment and started trusting the process. And the process never failed him. By month 8. His side business wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. He had real clients, real revenue, real proof that the man who once sat waiting for rescue had rescued himself. The Ethan who once wasted nights on excuses was gone. In his place stood a man forged in self-motivation and daily discipline. But the most important victory wasn't financial. It was internal. He no longer feared failure, no longer waited for permission, no longer wished for someone to guide him. He had built himself into the kind of man who didn't need saving. And that was freedom. The world finally noticed. People who once ignored him now asked for advice. Former doubters asked for help starting their own journeys. His social media posts inspired thousands who saw in him what they wanted for themselves. Proof that change is possible without waiting for someone else to make it happen. But Ethan didn't let the attention distract him, because he knew applause fades. What matters is what you do in the silence. One night, after a late gym session, he walked home under the streetlights, sweat dripping, lungs burning. His phone buzzed with new messages, clients, friends, strangers thanking him for inspiring them. He ignored them for the moment. Instead, he looked up at the night sky and whispered, "I saved myself." The words didn't sound arrogant. They sounded true, because he finally believed them. Months later, he stood on stage at a local seminar, speaking to hundreds of people who had come to hear his story. He didn't talk about money or fame. He didn't talk about luck. He talked about the nights no one saw, the mornings no one clapped for, the pain of waiting for someone else to change your life. And he told them the truth. No one is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your friends, not the government, not some miracle. If you're waiting for help, you'll wait forever. You have to be the one who gets up when you don't feel like it. The one who builds when no one notices. The one who fights for yourself when no one else will. Because the day you realize no one is coming is the day you finally become unstoppable. The crowd erupted in thunderous applause. But Ethan just nodded, calm, steady. Because applause wasn't his fuel anymore. Discipline was. And if you're hearing this now, if you've been waiting for the right time, if you've been waiting for the right person, if you've been waiting for a miracle to save you, stop. No one is coming. And that's the best news you'll ever hear. Because it means the power has always been in your hands. Get up, move forward, motivate yourself, and watch how far you can go when you stop waiting to be saved.